Well, good day everybody, Rye Guy here. Well, we're here. We're going to be doing some work down in my garage on my 2002 Grizzly 660. Now, this repair video is for a 2002 to a 2007 Grizzly 660. They changed up the design completely in 2008 when they went with the fuel-injected 700 motors. Now, what I am pointing the camera at right now is this area right down here. What is going on is there's an oil seal around that shaft that comes out from the back of the engine to the rear differential. For the second time now mind you, this bike almost has 13,000 plus kilometers on it. The oil seal in here has failed. There's several ways you can detect this. One is obviously taking a look at the seal itself and how it's leaking around the base of it. That's actually more noticeable in the dust than anywhere else. So, there's one indicator, and the other indicator is you can pretty much smell raw used engine oil. If you're familiar with that smell, you stop the bike, you may not see anything dripping, but you're going to smell that smell, and that's a good indicator. You should start taking a look very closely around your frame. Okay, so I'm going to set the camera up and we're going to go ahead and get started, and it's very, very hot out today, so hopefully my little box fan is going to keep me cool. But alright guys, we'll get started. Okay, so the first step what we're going to do is we're actually going to drain the engine oil. Once you pull this seal out, the engine oil is going to come out with it, so you want to make sure that's all drained. So have an extra filter handy if you're going to be doing a filter and oil change. Mine is close to being ready for a filter and oil change now, so it's pretty much good timing. Good timing, bad timing. So get the engine warmed up, drain your engine oil, then you don't have to drop all the skid plates, but you want to be dropping this rear skid plate here. Now I am going to be dropping all three of the skid plates on the underside of this, and that's a stock skid plate. And reason for that is I just want the opportunity to check out the frame, check out the gussets, that kind of make sure there's no cracks or big dimples or something like that in the frame rails, and clean out the skid plates. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. These are all 10 mil bolts from the front to the back, and they do have a high shoulder on the bolt so that they don't pull through this plastic. Alright, 17 mil for the drain plug. Alright, so while we're letting that engine oil drain, what we're going to do is we're going to drain the rear differential housing. For the bikes that haven't been worked on in a while, before you go ahead and just pop that drain plug out, you want to crack the filler plug, because if you can't get any oil into the differential after it's drained, then you're in trouble. So you want to make sure that that's nice and free first. Obviously mine's been worked on quite a few times before. So this is a 14 millimeter nut head. And mind you, these nut heads are very soft aluminum. Same goes with the aluminum housing. So you're going to want to be careful, especially when tightening them. There. And I think the foot-pounds on this is only like 8 or 10 or something like that. It's very, very light. So now that we know that's going to come out, now we can go ahead and drain the rear. Drain the bottom. And the bottom takes a 6 mil Allen key. Okay. Oil's looking pretty good. Not too much, not too milky or nothing like that. A little bit of milk going on there, but it's not too bad. Hasn't been changed in a while too, so we're just gonna let that drain, and the rest of the components will come off in a minute here. I'm just gonna let this drain and get it all cleaned out. Alright, so at this point, you want to get the rear end of the bike up in the air using either a ATV jack like this, jack stands, regular bottle jack. You want to be able to access all the way up to this point underneath the bike, so if you can, try to get your jack stands kind of in the center of the ATV, and make sure it is balanced, make sure you are safe when you're working. So I'm going to be removing quite a few components right now. What I'm going to be doing is taking off wheels and tires, upper and lower A-arms. I'm going to be pulling the axles out, and I'm going to be dropping these shocks off, just so everything's out of the way. And for me, I have the ITP lug nuts on there too, so they are 14 mil. The nuts and bolts for your control arms are a 17 millimeter on one side, 14 millimeter on the other side. Same goes for your shock mounts. And if you still have your sway bar hooked on like I do, remove that as well. So we're going to be taking one component off here at a time. But that's what you're going to be having to get into in order to get at that rear differential. Because that rear differential is going to have to come out. Alright, so here's a tip. You don't actually have to disassemble anything on this hub end. What you want to do is just pop all 4 of your control arm bolts out. Of course, take your sway arm off. When you get all 4 of these out and loose, you can just basically take this, fold it back out of the way a little bit, like this, so that you can access your axle. A couple light taps, and your whole assembly just comes out just as one. That way you don't have to worry about tapping the bearings out of here or anything like that, unless you're going to replace them. But that's pretty much the easiest way you can go about disassembling one side of your rear end. Same goes for the front as well. Obviously there's no sway bar on the front, but you notice also I disconnected the shock. That was actually one of the first things I took off, so that I can get my hands in here and access everything that you need to access a little bit easier. Alright, so now we have brake caliper off, we have our bolts loose and out. I had the front one out already, so I'm going to fold my legs like a genie here and support the bottom end of the differential. Slide this bolt out. So now our differential should be free. So we want to kind of wiggle this back, get everything free. Okay, so now you just see up front that spline just came completely off. So now we're free to try to wiggle the rest of this component out of here. Okay. Flip it down and bring it out. There is a rear differential assembly plus the drive shaft. Whew. Awkward. Okay, so hopefully this is still in view of the camera. Don't lose that spring. If I slide this boot back, if I can, a little bit rusty. There's your splines, and they go inside of this cup right here. That cup is going to have to come off, and I'll show you a straighter on version of that just in a second here. But that's what we got to remove. So, the reason why you don't want to lose that spring is because that keeps the tension on here, because these splines move in and out of right here. Not very much, mind you, but it's enough that if this is missing, it's going to wear this set of splines out real quick. So I'm just going to set this aside and get this area all cleaned up with some brake clean, and I'll reposition the camera so you guys can see a little bit better. Okay, so I got everything cleaned up the best I can around, where the seal actually lays, and around this seal here. And basically we got to get this cup off. So there's a 22mm nut in here, standard thread, that we're going to need to take off. And it is difficult to take this off with a wrench. I would suggest an impact. Again, this is your bike. Don't forget where that's attached to. That goes internally inside of your engine. So, take your time and go easy if you're going to use an impact. I'm actually choosing to use an electric impact. I find the electric impact has a higher frequency of hammer than my air-powered one, which actually eases up a little bit on the hammering motion. But just a higher frequency seems to take off nuts and bolts a little bit better. So I'm going to use that, my 1/2-inch Mastercraft here. Mastercraft. So, be careful when you're using this, you don't jam yourself in between here. So I'm going to get behind here and give it a couple good taps. there it is. Now, that should slide right out of there. And there's your oil seal. That's what you need. There's also a big washer that goes right in there too, so just be careful you don't lose that. Okay, so we actually don't need to touch any of these bolts here. We don't need to remove anything. We just need to pop this oil seal out and then put a new one in. So what I'm going to do before I do that, and to try to avoid any contaminants, is I'm going to stuff a rag in between here and then use brake clean to clean up around there. So just try to get, where's my little pick? There it is. Oh, okay. Try to get the rag kind of stuffed in around there. You don't have to do this, but it's just extra precaution for contamination. You don't want any crud in your oil. That's pretty obvious. Alright. I'll just take my whatever's left of my brake clean here. Get it all around there. Alright. So, next step is to grab your seal puller if you have one. Okay, if you haven't seen a seal puller before, I've mentioned it a couple times in my videos before, but this is a seal puller. See, it's got two different style hooks on it. This is just a cheap one. I bought this at Princess Auto for like $9 or something like that. Before you go ahead and dig inside of there, I would take a little bit of brake clean and just clean up the tool itself. Again, you don't want any contamination when you're trying to dig seals and things like that out. Okay, so I'm actually going to use the bigger hook end here. I'm just going to get right beside this set of splines, rest it down, and just pull. And there's the seal. Alrighty. Simple as that. There is your seal. And that's the seal you're going to be replacing, and I will give you the part number. This is an HS seal. I used an aftermarket seal. I didn't use OEM, so it's an SD30467. So that's the seal number you're going to use. So you're just going to pop the new seal in and reassemble the rest of the back end of the bike, like I showed you to take it off, and you are good to go. I pretty much won't show you, or I won't be showing you how to assemble that because I just showed you how to disassemble that. So again, it's actually a good time to check and see if you got any play in this. I can't feel anything in there. And as you can see inside here, there's a pretty big bearing. Pretty big carrier bearing, so you want to make sure that's nice and clean, that seal seat inside of here. Make sure there's no gouges or anything like that. If you do have to replace this bearing, you just literally unbolt those four, I think they were 12 mil bolt, and pull this apart, and that bearing is actually resting on, or inside of its own cup. So on this cover right here, but you have to be careful because when you try to take that off, you're going to have to get the inside of that bearing over these splines without damaging them as well. I haven't had to do that yet, but I've had to do that on somebody else's Grizzly. Whew, warm. Okay. Well, that is how you remove, replace, disassemble the back end of your Grizzly 660, again, 2002 to 2007. And to fix an oil leak around this seal here. Now, there is an O-ring around this here as well, this cover. But typically that's not the first seal to go. Typically it's always going to be the oil seal itself. They just run all the time. And wherever I just put that spline cup, there we go. You want to make sure you're inspecting along here. I can feel it's grooved a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing is taking that groove out of there. And you don't want to, make sure you don't shave off anything here either. You definitely don't want that to happen. But there you have it. That's how everything goes together. Alright guys, so I appreciate your time watching this video. I hope this helped out somebody. If the front seal goes, because the front is almost identical to this, I will do a video on the front, but it's pretty much identical to this in terms of procedure and how you get everything apart. You just be tearing apart the front, not the rear. So, thanks once again for joining me on this video. My channel is RyGuy8888, and I'll try to get in some more repair videos when I get some more customers come in. I know I got a guy who's coming in for a Polaris repair. I think it's just a set of bearings and stuff like that too. But I do this on the side. It's not my profession, but I am a mechanic as a profession. So, if any of you guys have any questions, just post them in the comment section below, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. I do read almost every comment that you guys put on my my channel as much as I can whenever I have time. So, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate your time. We'll see you out in the trail.